Imagine. You wake up beneath a blanket of stars, the sand cold beneath your hands. The fire has burned low, and the only sound is the wind sliding between the rocks. Your lips are cracked, your canteen is empty, and every shadow feels alive. You think you could survive a day in the desert? Among the Apache, survival wasn't a choice, it was an art, learned through silence, patience, and respect for the earth itself. The first light of dawn doesn't arrive gently here. It spills over the horizon like molten gold, searing the sand, turning every stone into a blade of light. You squint against it, half blinded, half transfixed. The desert stretches out forever, a sea of red dust and sagebrush, dotted with the ghostly silhouettes of yucca and saguaro. And somewhere, far beyond your sight, a hawk screams, one short, cutting note that breaks the silence like the first heartbeat of the day. This is Apache country. A land of extremes, blistering heat by day, biting cold by night. A place where the earth remembers everything, even the footsteps of those who walked it centuries ago. Step wrong here, and the desert keeps your story. Step right, and it becomes your teacher. The Apache called this world home not because it was gentle, but because it demanded greatness. They read its language, the tilt of a stone, the whisper of the wind, the taste of dust carried from miles away. To live here was to listen. To move with the patience of a shadow and the precision of a hawk's dive. You kneel and run your fingers through the sand. It's cool just beneath the surface. Every grain feels ancient, as if it's been waiting centuries to tell its story. Somewhere nearby, smoke rises from a hidden campfire, faint, almost invisible. The people there have learned to make it that way. Fire that warms but does not reveal. Light that feeds, but never betrays. The desert doesn't offer comfort. It offers truth. And the Apache understood that truth better than anyone. They were not conquerors of this place. They were its reflection. Their stories are carried not in books or monuments, but in the stones, the canyons, and the songs whispered into the wind. You start walking. The sand crunches softly beneath your feet, and the wind begins to hum, a low, endless sound that blurs time itself. The sun climbs higher, and every step feels heavier, as though the air itself thickens with heat. But to the Apache, this is not emptiness. This is life, raw, patient, balanced. The desert is a teacher that never repeats itself. It rewards silence, punishes arrogance, and tests every living thing without mercy. When you walk through it with respect, it gives you what you need. When you walk through it with pride, it takes everything from you. They called themselves the people. To outsiders they were Apaches, fierce, elusive, unbreakable. To themselves, they were part of the land's great breathing, not above it, not separate, but one heartbeat among many. They hunted not for sport, but to feed balance. They fought not to conquer, but to protect what could never be owned. The heat shimmers. Mirage pools dance at the edges of your vision. Somewhere in that haze, you can almost see them, riders moving silently through the dust, faces streaked with clay, eyes bright with purpose. They glide like smoke. No wasted motion. No sound but the rustle of grass and the quiet rhythm of hoofbeats against stone. This is not the story of warriors and battles. This is the story of endurance, of how a people learned to live in one of the most merciless landscapes on earth, guided by humility, discipline, and the unshakable belief that the world itself is sacred. You pause at the crest of a hill. Below you, the land unfolds in rippling shades of red and gold. The wind carries the faint scent of mesquite and the dry sweetness of sage. Somewhere far off, thunder murmurs behind distant mountains, the sky's slow reminder that even in a desert, rain is a promise that never dies. For the Apache, this sound was not just weather. It was a voice. The world spoke, and they listened. And as the thunder rose closer, you begin to understand what they knew. That the desert isn't empty. It's alive. It's watching. And if you're quiet enough, if you breathe with it, You can almost feel its heartbeat beneath your feet. The thunder fades behind you, leaving only the whisper of wind and the pulse of the sun climbing higher. You keep walking. Your shadow shortens, folding beneath your feet like a tired animal. The world around you begins to breathe in color. Ochre cliffs burn with gold, dry riverbeds glow with pale silver dust, and the far mountains shimmer like blue ghosts on the horizon. Every direction feels endless, and yet, somehow, intimate, as if the desert has drawn closer to watch what you'll do next. For the Apache, this was not emptiness. It was home. Not a land to be conquered or tamed, but a living being, one that could bless you or break you depending on how you treated it. You pause by a stand of mesquite, their roots clawing deep into the dry soil. There is no water in sight, and yet these trees live. Their secret lies underground, long roots, patient roots, finding what cannot be seen. The Apache admired that. They saw themselves in it, people who thrived not through power, but through understanding, who lived not above the earth, but within it. They learned early that survival here was never about strength. It was about listening, to the sand, to the sky, to the breathe between heartbeats. When they spoke of the world, they didn't say, the land. They said shi, meaning that which we are part of. To walk across it was to walk across one's own soul. Every rock, every windshift, every distant star had spirit, and those spirits were listening. You crouch, pick up a stone still warm from the sun. In its smooth surface, you see what they saw, an entire cosmos contained in the simplest thing. They believed stones were alive, patient beings who remembered. If you treated them with respect, they held you in silence. If you didn't, they could turn their memory against you. Somewhere ahead, a hawk cuts across the sky, a perfect line, shadow over light. Its cry shreds the stillness again, and for a heartbeat, you could swear the earth listens back. The Apache followed such signs not as superstition, but as conversation. When the hawk flew low, it warned of rain. When ants sealed their holes, a storm was coming. When the wind shifted east, the spirits were restless. Their calendar wasn't written in ink, it was written in clouds, in the tracks of animals, in the rhythm of roots pushing through the sand. They didn't separate the sacred from the practical. To know the weather was to know the gods. You walk on. The air ripples with heat now. Every breath tastes of iron and sun. Ahead, the land rises, a spine of red rock curving toward the sky. The Apache called such formations Sabadei, the stone beings. They weren't just cliffs. They were guardians, storytellers frozen in time. At sunset, their shadows would stretch for miles, long, silent witnesses to everything that lived and died beneath them. Children grew up hearing their names, their stories whispered by elders who sat in circles around firelight, tracing those shapes in the dark and saying, "That one remembers the flood. That one saw the first hunt. That one still watches the people." And when they said watches, they meant it. The land had eyes. To the Apache, the desert wasn't dangerous, it was precise. It gave exactly what was deserved, nothing more, nothing less. If you took without thanks, it would remember. If you moved carelessly, it would test you. If you respected it, it would let you live another day. They believed each mountain held a spirit, Jian, the mountain people. Invisible guardians who watched over hunters, guided travelers, and punished arrogance. In the stillness of dawn, you might glimpse one if your heart was quiet enough, not a ghost, but a shimmer of presence. A shadow that shouldn't be there. A feeling, sudden and electric, that you are being seen. You stop to rest in the narrow shade of a rock wall. The stone radiates warmth into your back. The wind moves through a canyon below, slow and heavy like a sleeping breath. It's strange, for such an empty place, it feels crowded. Every sound, every rustle, every sigh of wind, feels like a whisper meant for you. To live here, the Apache said, was to live in dialogue with all things. When they built a fire, they asked permission of the wood. When they filled a pot from a spring, they thanked the water aloud. Even death was seen as a return, not an ending, bones and breath given back to the soil that first shaped them. There's an old saying among them. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth. We are her breath, and she will breathe us again. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the heat sink into your skin. The air trembles, not with movement, but with memory. It's as though the desert remembers every step that's ever crossed it, every song ever sung, every prayer ever whispered into its wind. And you realize, this is what the Apache understood so well. That the land was not a backdrop. It was a partner, a mirror, a sacred conversation. When the first hunters moved through these canyons, they didn't draw maps. They drew stories. Lines carved into rock, shapes of animals, spirals of time. To modern eyes, their art. To the Apache, they were language, words etched in silence, meant to be read by the sky. You trace one faint petroglyph with your fingertips. It's a spiral, half-faded, curling inward like a breath drawn long ago. You wonder what it meant. A storm? A journey? A prayer? Maybe all of them, because for the Apache, everything was connected. Hunt, song, death, birth, dust, all were part of the same pattern, circling endlessly back into itself. The wind picks up again, tugging at your clothes, carrying with it the smell of dry grass and something faintly sweet, desert sage in bloom. You stand, brush the sand from your knees, and start walking toward the horizon. Above, the sky deepens from white to blue to something darker, richer, a color too vast for words. The Apache believed the sky itself was a living spirit, Yasin, the All-Father, infinite, unseen, yet woven into every grain of dust and drop of rain. He was not a god watching from above, but the very breath within all things. To walk beneath him was to walk within him. And so they moved lightly across this world, never building more than they needed, never cutting deeper than the earth allowed. Their shelters, wickiups of willow and brush, were temporary, folding back into the land when they moved on. Even their trails vanished within a season, reclaimed by the desert. To leave no scar was the greatest sign of respect. The sun begins to sink, and the color of the land shifts again, red to copper, copper to violet. You can feel the temperature drop, a sudden bite in the air as shadows stretch long across the sand. The desert is shedding its heat, and night approaches quickly. From somewhere nearby comes a faint sound, the echo of laughter, children's voices carried on the wind. For a moment you almost see them, small figures darting between rocks, bare feet kicking up dust, the gleam of painted faces under the fading light. Their mothers watch from a distance, braiding their hair with strips of yucca fiber, humming songs older than any written language. The rhythm of the song moves like the desert itself, slow, endless, patient. That's how Apache wisdom lived, not in temples or books, but in motion. In footsteps and echoes, in the wind's long memory. You sit on a ridge and watch the last light vanish behind the mountains. The air cools quickly now, your breath fogs faintly as the stars emerge, one, then another, until the whole sky blooms into light. The Apache believed that the stars were campfires of their ancestors, spirits watching, guiding, whispering. Every constellation had a story, a hunter who became the night sky, a woman who married the wind, a child who carried fire from the gods to the people. To them, the heavens weren't distant. They were family. And as the night deepens, that vast sky seems to lean closer, its silence no longer empty, but filled with presence. The fireflies of creation burning steady above you. Stone beneath. Sky above. You sit between them, as the Apache always did, belonging to both. In that stillness, you begin to understand why they never built monuments, never carved their names into stone. They didn't need to. They were already written into the landscape itself, in the trails worn smooth by bare feet, in the echoes of songs still trembling in the wind. This is the way of the people of stone and sky. No empire. No palace. No crown. Only the land, the breath, the balance, and the knowledge that everything you take must one day be given back. And as the stars burn quietly overhead, the desert folds around you again. Silent, infinite, alive. The desert doesn't sleep, it only changes its breathing. You lie awake beneath a canopy of stars that burn sharper than thought, listening to the slow creak of cooling stones, the faint scuttle of some night creature nosing through the sand. The air is dry enough to rasp your throat, but it's clean in the way that makes your mind feel rinsed. You understand why the Apache slept so lightly. The desert itself was never truly still. Before first light, the horizon begins to glow, a thin band of silver blue splitting the black. The Apache call this hour Bikego Denai, the time when the sun thinks about returning. This is the hunter's hour, the in-between moment when the world is soft enough for movement, when shadows have not yet chosen their shapes. You stir, shake off the blanket of sand that has settled on you during the night, and rise with the others. There is no shouting, no clatter of tools. Only the quiet rhythm of preparation, the soft whisper of a bowstring being checked, the low breath of someone tying rawhide sandals, the rustle of a quiver being slung across a back. To the Apache, the hunt was not a contest between man and beast, it was a ceremony of balance, a conversation between lives. They believed every animal had its own power, its own consciousness. To hunt it was to enter a sacred dialogue. One wrong thought, one careless gesture, could turn the spirit of the prey against you. That's why the morning begins in silence. The men kneel in a loose circle. One reaches down, scoops a handful of soil, and presses it to his forehead, his chest, his lips. Another murmurs a few words so quietly that even the wind seems to bow to listen. It is not a prayer in the way outsiders imagine, it is a request, humble and precise. Permission to take what must be taken, guidance to do it rightly, forgiveness before the act is done. You feel the shift in the air as they rise. The line between stillness and motion disappears. They become part of the desert again, each step slow, deliberate, silent. Imagine walking barefoot through the sand at dawn. Every grain feels alive beneath your feet. The air carries the smell of juniper and cold stone. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote yips once, twice, then falls quiet. The sun has not yet cleared the mountains, but already the light bleeds into the canyons, turning the rock faces to bronze. This is where hunting becomes art. The Apache were masters of reading the unseen. They could trace a deer's passage by a single bent blade of grass, a scuffed pebble, the way a shadow leans slightly where it shouldn't. To them, tracking wasn't following. It was listening with the eyes. Every mark held a story. A hoofprint pressed deep meant a heavy animal, lighter prints, a nervous one. If the edges of the track were sharp, it had passed recently. If they were crumbling, the trail was cold. You kneel beside one of them, see the faint crescent shape of a deer's hoof in the dust. To your eyes, it's nearly invisible. But the Apache beside you sees everything. How it shifts the grain of sand, where the animal paused to test the wind, how it turned its head before moving on. From this, he knows its rhythm, how far ahead it is, how tired, how cautious. He gestures for you to follow. The group moves low, half-crouched, blending with the land's curves. No one speaks. Even the children who accompany their elders on smaller hunts are trained from the beginning. Silence is survival. Words scare the air. The desert hears everything. You pass through dry creek beds littered with white stones, over ridges where wind carves patterns in the sand like waves frozen mid-motion. The world hums softly, alive with insect wings, the occasional flutter of a startled bird. Yet through it all, the hunters move without sound, their feet finding the softest ground, their breath matching the wind's. Hours pass like minutes. The sun climbs, hard and white now, beating down until the very air seems to shimmer. Sweat beads on your neck, slides down your back, stings your eyes. The Apache do not wipe their brows, even small movements are deliberate. Heat is part of the trial, part of the purification. When they finally stop, it's not for rest. One has raised his hand. Ahead, barely visible through the glare, the deer stands at the edge of a stand of mesquite. Ears flicking. Stillness made flesh. And in that stillness, something happens that you can't explain. The hunters do not lunge forward. They do not draw their bows. They simply wait, breathing with the animal, letting its rhythm settle into theirs. To kill too quickly would be disrespectful. To kill thoughtlessly would unbalance the world. The Apache believed that success came not from skill alone, but from harmony, when hunter and hunted move within the same circle of awareness. You hear the faint creak of a bowstring, a soft hiss as the arrow slips free. No sound of impact, only the sudden absence of the deer's heartbeat in the air. When they approach, no one cheers. There is no triumph here, only quiet acknowledgement. The man who fired kneels beside the animal, places a hand on its flank. He speaks again in that same low tone, a thank you, a promise, a farewell. Then he draws a small amount of blood and marks his forehead with it, sealing the exchange. The others begin to work, careful and precise. Nothing is wasted. The hide will be tanned with the brain of the deer itself, the sinew turned to bowstring, the bones into tools or weapons, the meat dried for travel. Even the hooves are kept, used for glue or small ornaments that rattle softly in the wind, reminders of life taken honorably. The act of hunting extends beyond the kill. The fire that will cook the meat must be lit with care, no smoke, no scent that might draw scavengers or enemies. The Apache build their fires low, feeding them with dry mesquite until the flames whisper instead of roar. They eat in silence, passing strips of meat by hand. When the meal is done, they scatter the ashes, bury the remains, erase every trace of their presence. Within an hour, the desert looks untouched, as if the hunt never happened. And that, perhaps, is the art itself, not in the taking, but in the leaving. As the day wanes, the hunters begin their journey back, moving toward the distant line of the mountains where their families wait. The sky turns from blinding gold to rose, then to the deep bruised purple of twilight. The air cools, smelling of dust and pine resin. You walk among them, your footsteps matching theirs now almost by instinct. They move as one body, each step measured, each silence shared. The smallest boy carries the animal's antlers tied to his back, proud and solemn. His father walks beside him, teaching without words, the way Apache fathers always have. Ahead, the first fires of the camp flicker like fallen stars. Women's voices drift on the wind, low and rhythmic, blending with the sound of night insects. The people gather as the hunters return, not to celebrate, but to restore balance. A small portion of the meat will be burned as offering, the smoke rising straight into the dark sky. The elders watch, eyes reflecting the flames. They remember every hunt, every season of hunger and plenty. For them, each kill is part of the long story of the people, a story not of domination, but of participation in the great pulse of the world. When the ceremony ends, the camp settles into quiet. The stars emerge again, sharper now, each one pulsing like a heartbeat in the sky. The hunters lie down, their bows within reach, their faces turned toward the wind. The desert breathes around them. And as you lie there too, listening to the soft crackle of embers and the distant call of an owl, you begin to understand. The Apache didn't hunt for survival alone. They hunted to remember who they were, to keep the thread between life and death taut, balanced, alive. Because here, in the vast silence of the Southwest, survival is not victory. It is art, painted in footsteps, in patience, in the quiet breathe between heartbeat and wind. The fire is only a pulse now, red light breathing slow beneath the skin of ash. The hunters sleep. Or maybe they only seem to. Their chests rise with the rhythm of the wind, and their faces are calm, unreadable. Above them, the stars turn, steady and unhurried, as they have turned for 1,000 Apache nights. Somewhere, far off, a coyote calls. Once. Twice. The sound threads through the stillness like smoke through cloth, and fades. Then the world holds its breath again. You're lying there among them, wrapped in the thin warmth of a blanket that smells of smoke and juniper. You've learned not to move too quickly. The desert punishes haste. Even shifting your weight stirs the sand enough to betray you. So you stay still, feeling the silence press against you like water. The Apache say that silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of listening. It is the earth's way of speaking to those patient enough to hear. Long before the sun rises, they wake. Not with words, not with the rustle of command. Just a slow unfolding, like petals opening to light. Someone stirs the coals with a stick. A thin thread of heat curls upward. No one speaks. They do not need to. The hunt continues at dawn. Imagine walking through a desert that has not yet decided what it wants to be. A world made of blue shadow and silver dust. The air is cold enough to bite your lungs, and the sand crunches softly beneath your feet. The light is soft, uncertain. This is the hour of ghosts, when the spirits of the night linger before the sun chases them away. The Apache move like those ghosts. Their feet find the quietest places, the soft sand between stones, the pads of dry grass that muffle sound. Even their breathing is deliberate, shallow, measured. To them, silence is more than a tactic. It is a teacher, a discipline. It trains the mind to see what the careless eye misses, to sense what lies hidden. When they were children, they learned it as play. Games of stillness in which the smallest noise meant starting over. A child might crouch for an hour watching an ant crawl across a stone, learning to match his breath to its pace. Elders would tell them, "The wind hears. The earth feels. Be smaller than both." You think of that now as you follow the hunters through the narrow canyons. The world is awake, barely. A raven croaks from a rock spire. Somewhere, water drips from stone to stone, each drop echoing like a clock marking eternity. And through it all, the Apache move without sound. Even their shadows seem careful. Silence is their camouflage, but also their prayer. It is how they show respect for the animal, for the land, for themselves. To break it carelessly would be to boast before the spirits. You stop at the mouth of a canyon. The air is still here, heavy with the scent of damp earth. The lead hunter raises a hand. Everyone freezes. For a moment, there is nothing. Then you hear it, a faint click of stone against stone. Not loud, not obvious, but enough. The hunter tilts his head. His eyes narrow. A few steps forward, and he points to a mark on the ground that looks to you like nothing at all. But he reads it like a sentence, a mountain sheep, moving slow, favoring one leg. Not far. The group splits soundlessly. Two circle left along the ridge. Another climbs the rocks, his fingers finding holds like water finding cracks. The lead hunter gestures for you to stay low. His hand moves once through the air, swift, sure, silent. Every motion speaks. Every silence is a word. You wait, breath shallow. The world narrows to heartbeat and dust. Then, without warning, the sheep appears above you on the slope, silhouetted against the lightning sky. It stands perfectly still, as if carved from the same stone it stands on. No one moves. The Apache do not rush. They wait until the animal lowers its head to graze, until its muscles relax, until the wind shifts in their favor. Then, an arrow hums. Clean. Precise. The sheep drops without cry or struggle. The moment the sound ends, the silence deepens, heavier than before. It isn't triumph. It's reverence. When they reach the animal, the lead hunter kneels. He places a hand on its still flank, and whispers something so soft that only the sand hears it. He takes a pinch of dust, sprinkles it on the wound, as though sealing a promise. Then, again, silence. Even the young ones, who might have cheered, only watch. The desert teaches restraint. Joy is quiet here. As they work, skinning, cleaning, dividing the meat, There is no chatter, no laughter. Their blades move with the economy of long practice, each motion efficient, respectful. The blood darkens the sand, and the smell of iron and sage drifts on the breeze. When it is done, they carry the meat in bundles of hide. The rest, bones, hooves, sinew, they will return to the earth. Nothing is left exposed. The Apache believe that if scavengers scatter the remains, the spirit of the animal cannot find peace. The land must stay whole, just as the silence must remain unbroken. As the sun rises fully, they pause in the shadow of a cliff to rest. No one speaks, but the silence isn't empty. It hums with meaning. You hear the click of a knife being sharpened, the sigh of a wind shifting direction, the soft creak of rawhide as someone adjusts his pack. These sounds are like words in a language too subtle for speech. You realize, after a while, that silence doesn't mean stillness. It's a kind of listening so complete that it becomes motion itself. The hunters know when to move because the world tells them when. A gust of wind becomes a signal. The distant call of a raven becomes permission. The Apache say the wind carries messages from the spirits. It warns the wise and confuses the proud. So when it shifts, they shift with it. To them, this is harmony, not superstition, living in the same rhythm as the earth's breath. By midday, the heat presses down like a hand. The horizon wavers in the distance, blurring stone and sky into one molten color. The men move to a rocky outcrop, shaded and cool. They sit, backs against stone, eyes half closed. Still no words. A boy, perhaps 10 years old, sits beside an elder. He holds a small stone in his hand, turning it over and over. The elder watches, then gestures once, small, deliberate. The boy places the stone down gently, not tossing it, not dropping it. A lesson in respect. The elder nods, satisfied. This is how silence teaches. Through gesture. Through observation. Through patience. In Apache stories, the greatest heroes are not those who speak boldly, but those who listen deeply. The ones who hear the wind before it changes, who sense danger before it arrives. Warriors were trained to speak little and move less. In battle, silence was weapon and shield alike. When raids were planned, they were planned in whispers. Scouts returned with no announcement, only signs traced in the dust, a number of enemies, a direction, a warning. Even in victory, the warriors spoke few words. To boast would invite imbalance. The desert despises arrogance. You think of how rare that kind of quiet is now, how far the modern world has moved from it. The Apache didn't fill silence, they honored it. They let it shape their thoughts, discipline their instincts, sharpen their awareness. The elder finally speaks, one word, low and round as a drumbeat. The others stir, rise. The rest is done in motion. They hoist their packs, adjust their bows. The path home awaits. As they walk, the desert begins to sing again. Wind through dry grass. A faint rattle of seeds in a pod. The scraping cry of a raven circling above. Each sound slides into the next until it feels like music written by the land itself. By dusk, they reach the edge of camp. The smell of smoke meets them, sweet, thin, familiar. Children run out to meet the hunters, their laughter breaking the long day's stillness. For the first time, voices return. Low at first, then louder, like a stream finding its strength. But even here, the power of silence lingers. Conversations are measured. The hunters speak of what must be spoken, no more. The women listen. The children listen. Everyone learns. When night falls, a story begins by the fire. The elder tells it slowly, pausing between phrases, letting the flames fill the spaces. It's about a man who spoke too soon, who frightened the spirit of the deer and went hungry for a season. The children nod, wide-eyed. The lesson is clear: silence keeps you alive. Later, when the fire dies down, you lie back and watch the stars return. The same stars that have watched 1,000 hunts, 1,000 silences. Somewhere, a drumbeat begins, soft, steady, like the heart of the desert itself. The Apache believe that the world was sung into being, and that sound, used wrongly, can unravel it. So they guard their words as they guard their arrows, drawn only when needed, loosed only with purpose. And as you drift towards sleep, you understand why. Because here, in this vast, echoing silence, every word matters. Every sound is a choice. And sometimes, the most powerful sound of all is the one you do not make. The fire has burned down to the color of coals hidden under breath. The night lies still over the desert, an ocean of stars above, a black sea of stone below. Somewhere far beyond the camp, an owl calls once, the sound echoing between cliffs like a question that doesn't need an answer. When dawn finally arrives, it comes not as a blaze but as a slow blooming of color. The mountains turn from indigo to rose. The sand drinks the light. Shadows stretch long and quiet, like thoughts that haven't yet been spoken. The hunters are already awake. They move through the camp with that same practiced grace, soundless, patient, complete. But this morning is different. It isn't a hunt. It's a lesson. You follow as the older men and women gather the children. Small faces, sharp-eyed, wrapped in blankets of woven fiber. They stand in a semicircle, blinking at the rising sun, fighting sleep with curiosity. Each holds a small pouch of cornmeal, an offering for the morning. The eldest woman among them, her hair silver as moonlight, steps forward and sprinkles her cornmeal into the wind. The grains scatter and vanish, carried east toward the light. The others follow, each gesture deliberate, silent. It's a simple act, but heavy with meaning. The Apache teach their children that the day should begin with gratitude, not need. You thank the world first, before you ask anything of it. Then the real lesson begins. A man kneels in the dust, draws a single line with a stick. "Look," he says quietly. "What do you see?" The children crowd closer. Some shrug. Others frown, trying to guess what he means. "It is not just a line," he continues. "It is a path. It tells you which way the wind was blowing. It tells you who made it." He gestures to the far hills where a hawk circles, its shadow moving across the ground like a ripple of smoke. "To see," he says, "is not enough. You must understand what you see. You realize then that this is the root of Apache training, not in weapons, not in strength, but in perception. They teach their children to watch before they act, to see before they speak. The land is a book, and every stone, every leaf, every silence is a line of text written by something alive. One of the older boys kneels beside the man, tracing a faint print in the sand, a rabbit track, so small it's almost invisible. The man nods. "Good. But how long ago?" The boy tilts his head, squinting. "Before the sun rose." He murmurs. "How do you know?" "The edge of the print," the boy says. "See? It's dry now. But when he passed, it was cool, and the dew softened it." The man smiles, a rare thing. "Eyes of the hawk," he says. The phrase carries weight here. Among the Apache, it's the highest compliment. It means you see as the world truly is, not as your mind imagines it. The lesson continues. The children are led out beyond the camp into the canyons, where stone walls glow with early light. They scatter, quiet as small shadows. One crouches beside a cactus blossom, another peers at a cluster of ants moving across a rock. They are learning patience, awareness, humility, the holy trinity of survival. The elders watch without interfering. Only now and then do they whisper a correction, a reminder to slow down, to breathe with the wind. "If you hurry," one says softly, "you'll walk past everything worth seeing." It isn't just nature they study. They watch each other too, the way shoulders move, the way eyes shift. A child learns to read emotion the same way they read tracks, through subtle signs, through rhythm and stillness. It's how the Apache survive among enemies, how they sense danger before it arrives. You find yourself wondering how many lives were saved by a flicker of recognition, a glint of sunlight on metal seen half a mile away, the faint wrong note in the song of crickets when footsteps pass. They say an Apache scout could lie hidden for hours, unmoving, watching a trail through a slit in the rocks. He'd count the men passing below not by sight, but by the cadence of their feet, the shift of weight in the dust. He could tell who was tired, who was afraid, who was leading. To be a hunter, to be a warrior, was first to be a watcher. One of the elders, a man whose face seems carved from the same stone he sits against, calls for the children to gather again. "You've seen much this morning," he says. "Now tell me what the land said to you." The children speak one by one. "The wind said rain will come," says one. "The ants said the ground is warm now," says another. "The hawk said the rabbits are near." He listens, nodding, and then adds, "And what did the silence say?" "They are quiet a long time." Finally, a small girl answers, almost in a whisper. "It said, listen longer." The man smiles, eyes crinkling like paper. "Good," he says. "That is the beginning of wisdom." The morning passes into heat. The air grows heavy, shimmering. The lesson shifts from watching to endurance. The children are told to find a place on the ridge and wait. Not for an hour, not for a moment, but until the elders say. No talking. No moving. Only watching. You join them, sitting beneath a sparse mesquite tree. The land spreads below you in waves of color, rust, ochre, gold. The sky above is mercilessly blue, the kind of blue that hums in your bones. Minutes stretch into hours. At first, it feels endless. But then, something changes. You begin to notice things you hadn't before. The tiny shadow of a bee as it drifts past, the pattern of cracks in the stone that looks like a map, the faint tremor in the air before a gust of wind. You start to feel the pulse of the land itself, subtle and steady. This, too, is part of their education. To see is to belong. To belong is to be responsible. When the elders finally call the children back, no one complains. They rise slowly, almost reluctantly, as if leaving a conversation mid-sentence. By afternoon, the air hums with heat. The camp quiets into siesta, people resting under shades of cloth and hide, the world slowing into that suspended stillness that only the desert knows. You sit with one of the elders, the man who led the morning lesson. He points toward the mountains. "Do you see the hawk?" You squint, but the sky seems empty. "There," he says, and only then do you see it, a faint speck gliding high above, motionless against the sun. "He sees you," the man says. "He sees everything." You ask what the hawk means to the Apache. He thinks for a while before answering. "He is the eye of the sky. The watcher who forgets nothing. The hawk teaches us to look not with fear, but with understanding. To see truth is not to judge, it is to know where you stand." He picks up a handful of sand, lets it fall through his fingers. "The hawk knows every grain of this world is alive. That is why he never wastes a motion." As evening falls, the children return to the camp carrying small treasures. A feather, a smooth stone, a sea pod that rattles when shaken. Each one offers their find to the elders, who examine them with the gravity of judges. These are not trophies. They are teachers, reminders of what the land shared. When night comes, the air cools quickly. The stars return, infinite and bright. A fire crackles in the center of camp. The people gather around it, their faces lit by shifting gold. A woman begins to sing, her voice soft and low, a melody that flows like water over stone. It's an old psalm, one that speaks of the hawk and the wind, of sight and silence, of the duty to see the world clearly and walk within it gently. The children listen, eyes wide, the fire reflected in their pupils like tiny suns. The elders close their eyes, nodding to the rhythm. The flames twist higher, sparks joining the stars. You feel the night close in around you, the vastness of it, the depth. Somewhere high above, the hawk glides unseen in the dark, a shadow among shadows. Watching. Waiting. And you understand now what the Apache have always known. That to live is to see. To see is to remember. And to remember is to honor the breath of everything that moves beneath the sun. The fire crackles softly. The song fades into the quiet hum of wind. And once again, the desert listens. The song drifts away with the smoke. One by one, the voices fade until all that remains is the soft rasp of wind brushing through the sage. The fire has settled into embers, glowing like eyes in the sand. You lie awake for a long while, thinking about the hawk, the way it glided through the morning sky without effort, every movement necessary, none wasted. In the Apache world, that same precision lives in their hands. To see clearly is one kind of mastery. To create from that seeing is another. The next morning, the camp wakes to the faint chill of dawn. The men and women move quietly, gathering stones, wood, and sinew. The children watch from the edges of the clearing, still drowsy, their curiosity sharp as light. Today, they will learn another language of the land, the craft of the weapon. But here, a weapon is never merely an instrument of death. It is a living bridge between the maker and the world. The elder you met yesterday, the one with a voice like gravel softened by time, squats by a flat stone. Before him lies a collection of tools, a rough deer antler, a smooth river rock, and several shards of flint glinting like captured lightning. He gestures for the children to sit. Watch, he says, and nothing more. He lifts one of the flint pieces, holds it against the larger stone, and strikes with the antler. The sound rings out, sharp, rhythmic, the heartbeat of creation. Tiny shards fall, each one flashing in the sun before vanishing into dust. Bit by bit, a blade begins to form, narrow, thin, perfect. No one speaks. The only sound is the click of stone against stone. The rhythm becomes hypnotic, ancient, patient. The elder pauses, turning the piece in his hand, feeling the edge with his thumb. A faint line of red appears, blood. He nods, satisfied. Now it lives, he murmurs. To the Apache, every blade carries spirit, the essence of the earth that birthed it, and the hand that shaped it. A dull edge means carelessness, a sharp one means respect. Before the blade can be used, it must be spoken to, thanked, and given a place in the circle of life. He holds it up to the morning light, whispering words too soft to hear. Then he presses the flint to the ground, letting the sun warm its surface. The others follow suit, laying their tools on the soil like newborns resting in their cradle. Nearby, a younger man works on a bough. He bends a length of juniper slowly, testing the wood's patience. Each groan of the fiber sounds like a conversation, question and answer between man and tree. The sinew string is stretched, tightened, adjusted until it sings softly when plucked. You can smell the sap in the air, sweet and sharp. A hawk circles above again, as if curious about the shapes forming below. The women are working too, not with wood or stone, but with leather. They strip the hide of yesterday's hunt into thin cords, rubbing it with fat to soften it. Some twist fibers of yucca into rope. Others carve bone into fish hooks, needles, or ornaments. Every scrap of material has a destiny. Nothing is wasted. To outsiders, these might look like tools of survival. But to the Apache, each object is sacred. Each carries intention. They say the bough remembers the hand that shaped it. The knife remembers the first thing it cuts. The arrow remembers its first flight. A young boy approaches the elder with a piece of wood in his hands. It's crooked, uneven, barely recognizable as a bough. He looks embarrassed. It won't bend, he says quietly. The elder takes it, examines it, then sets it against his knee. The wood snaps with a clean sound. The boy flinches. Now it can teach you, the elder says, handing him the broken halves. A weapon must begin with listening. The wood already knows what it wants to be. You cannot force it. You ask. You shape with patience. If it resists, it is not ready. If you press too hard, it dies. He tosses the broken pieces into the fire. The smoke curls upward, fragrant with sap. The lesson lingers in the boy's eyes. Across the camp, another man sharpens a knife on sandstone. Each drag of the blade against stone is slow, deliberate, a whisper between steel and earth. The light catches the edge. It gleams briefly, then darkens again. When he is done, he rubs the blade with a paste made from animal fat and ash, sealing it against rust. Then he places it point down in the ground. Rest, he murmurs to it, as though it might answer. The Apache believe that every tool has a temper, just like a person. A bow that's strung too tightly will snap in defiance. A blade that's overused will turn dull out of fatigue. You must feed your tools, care for them, give them sleep. A warrior who forgets this forgets himself. By mid-morning, the camp hums with quiet industry. Arrows are fletched with feathers from the turkey and the eagle, each feather chosen carefully, never from the same bird, never taken without permission. The balance must be perfect, one from the left wing, one from the right, so that flight remains even. You hold one of the finished arrows. It feels impossibly light yet strong. The shaft smells of resin and smoke. At the tip, the flint glows faintly in the sun, its edge thin as a whisper. The maker notices you looking. The arrow knows where it will go before you shoot, he says, eyes glinting with humor. Your task is only not to lie to it. He means it. The Apache see the line between thought and action as sacred. To strike with anger is to poison the weapon. To hunt with greed is to make it miss. A clean mind makes a true shot. When the weapons are finished, the people gather in a circle again. They place the tools at the center, bows, arrows, knives, spears, and sit quietly. No one touches them yet. The elder begins to hum, low and deep, the sound vibrating through the air like distant thunder. Others join, the tones weaving together into something more than song. It is vibration, prayer through resonance. The wind shifts. The smell of cedar smoke drifts through the clearing. Someone sprinkles crushed sage into the fire, and the smoke thickens, curling around the weapons, sanctifying them. Each person steps forward in turn. They hold their bow or knife to their chest, whispering to it, thanking it, promising to use it with balance. The children mimic them, solemn and careful. Even their small wooden toys, practiced bows, dull stone knives, are treated with reverence. When it is your turn, you feel the gravity of the moment. The silence around the circle is deep enough to feel in your bones. You pick up a piece of flint, smooth and cold. It fits perfectly in your palm, as though it's been waiting for this. You understand then that these weapons are not born of violence. They are born of survival, of respect. They are the desert's gift to those who ask correctly. The ceremony ends with laughter, sudden and bright, like sunlight breaking through cloud. The people relax, stretch, pass around roasted cactus fruit. The air fills with sweetness again. Even in solemnity, life remains simple, joyful, immediate. As the day fades, you walk beyond the camp. The horizon glows orange and violet, and the air cools with every breath. You see a figure standing on a ridge, a young hunter, testing his new bow. He draws the string back slowly, eyes fixed on a distant cactus. The arrow flies soundless and straight, striking dead center. He lowers the bow, exhales, and smiles. You can feel the satisfaction in him, not pride, not triumph, but balance. The circle is whole. Behind him, the desert stretches wide and endless. Every shadow seems alive. Every stone seems aware. The tools the Apache shape are not meant to conquer this world. They are meant to move within it, to mirror its sharpness, its patience, its grace. And as the last of the light fades, you realize something else. In this land, even the weapons are prayers. They are not forged against the earth, but from it, birthed by the same wind, tempered by the same silence, guided by the same steady hands that have shaped this world for centuries. The boy retrieves his arrow and walks back to camp, his silhouette merging with the dark. The stars rise again, and the wind carries the faint metallic whisper of flint striking stone. Creation continues. The desert breathes. The people endure. The night is long but not empty. It moves in quiet layers, the hush of wind, the soft hiss of cooling stones, the sigh of embers collapsing into themselves. The camp breathes in rhythm with the desert. Even in sleep, the Apache listen. The land never stops whispering, and the wise do not close their ears. Before the light returns, a single sound breaks the stillness. The soft shuffle of footsteps. The hunters are rising. No one calls them, they simply know. Their bodies, tuned by seasons of discipline, wake with the land's first heartbeat. The air is cold enough to bite, so pure it almost hurts to breathe. Every breath leaves a small ghost behind. Above, the stars burn lower now, retreating westward, leaving streaks of pale silver on the horizon. It is that rare moment before dawn, when night still clings to the earth, unwilling to let go, and the world feels suspended between two breaths. The hunters move toward the riverbed, carrying their bows and knives wrapped in leather. Each weapon has been cleaned, oiled, and blessed the night before. They carry them not as tools but as companions. You follow at a respectful distance, your own footsteps swallowed by the sand. No one speaks. The only sounds are the quiet scuff of feet, the soft creak of sinew strings, the occasional flutter of a bird disturbed from sleep. They stop in a wide clearing, the kind where the air feels older, heavier with unseen presence. This is a place of beginning, where generations have come to greet the morning. The eldest among them kneels first. He sets his bow on the ground, its curved shadow barely visible in the dim light, and presses both palms to the earth. The others follow, forming a silent circle. You kneel, too, feeling the cold seep through your knees, the pulse of the land beneath your hands, slow, steady, alive. This is not worship in the way outsiders might think. It is communion, conversation, acknowledgement. The Apache believe that to take from the earth, food, water, shelter, life, you must first ask permission. Not from gods in the sky, but from the living soul of the land itself. The elder's voice rises, low and measured, a murmur that feels more like wind than speech. His words are not meant to be heard, they are meant to be felt. They are the same words his father spoke, and his father's father before him, a lineage carried not in books but in breath. He asks for guidance, for balance, for forgiveness. He thanks the land for the chance to prove worthy again. The others echo softly, each in their own way. Some whisper to the soil, others to the air. One young hunter holds a small pouch of cornmeal, releasing a pinch into the wind. The grains drift upward, catch the first light of dawn, and vanish into the glow. When the prayers are finished, they sit in silence, waiting. The desert itself seems to listen back. And then, so gradually you almost don't notice, it happens. The sky begins to breathe color. The first hint of pink spreads across the horizon, and with it comes warmth, faint but certain. The land shifts from shadow to light. Every stone, every thorn, every grain of sand awakens. The hunters rise slowly, stretching their limbs, faces turned eastward. No one smiles, yet there is peace in their stillness. This moment, this sliver of time between darkness and day, is sacred. They call it the earth's first word. You can see it in their eyes, a deep awareness that this sunrise is not guaranteed, that life itself renews only by agreement. One of the younger men kneels again, touching the soil lightly, almost tenderly. "She is warm today," he says. The others nod. The earth has answered. The hunt may begin. They move to prepare. The tasks are quiet, deliberate. A thin fire is built to warm the hands. Low flames, almost invisible, fed with dry roots that give no smoke. Around it, the men paint their faces with earth pigments, streaks of white clay for focus, red ochre for strength, black ash for silence. Each color holds meaning. Each line is a prayer drawn upon the skin. You notice how precise they are, how every motion is executed without hesitation. The Apache do not waste energy. Even ritual has efficiency. A hunter smears a line of ash across his forehead and whispers, "To see clear." Another draws a mark along his jaw. "To speak true." They move like shadows around the fire. The air smells of sage and dust, and the faint tang of animal fat. Once ready, they sit again, facing the sun as it climbs. Its light spills over the desert, gilding everything, stones, blades, eyes, with a molten brilliance. The warmth feels like promise. The elder stands and lifts his bow. "The day walks," he says simply. The others rise. Before they leave, the youngest hunter steps forward carrying a small bundle wrapped in hide. He opens it carefully, revealing a feather from a golden eagle. He ties it to his bow, near the grip. The others bow their heads. Among the Apache, the eagle is the highest messenger, the one who sees all, the one who flies closest to the spirit world. Its feather grants vision and steadiness, reminding the hunter that even when he kills, he must remain humble. The young man closes his eyes, murmurs something to the feather, then looks skyward. His expression is calm. He is ready. When they begin to move, the formation is fluid but purposeful. The elder leads, choosing the terrain with instinct refined by decades. The others follow at intervals, spaced so their shadows do not overlap. They move through the grasslands where the sun paints long gold lines across the sand. No one looks back. The Apache believe that to turn your gaze behind you before a hunt invites confusion. The spirits might follow and tangle your path. Forward is the only sacred direction now. You walk behind them, the silence so deep that even your heartbeat feels intrusive. The land glows brighter with every step. The wind carries scents, dry sage, the faint sweetness of creosote after dew. At the crest of a ridge, the elder stops. Below stretches an open plain, vast and empty at first glance. But as your eyes adjust, shapes begin to emerge, tracks, faint depressions in the sand, tufts of grass bent by passing hooves. Life everywhere, hidden in plain sight. The hunters study the scene for a long time, their gazes sweeping, patient, exact. No one rushes to act. Finally, the elder speaks. "Dear." It's more than a guess. It's a declaration. The others nod, already adjusting their plans. They know how the animal moves, where it drinks, when it rests. Their knowledge of its habits is so complete it feels almost intimate, as if they share one heartbeat. One hunter kneels, places a hand on the ground, and closes his eyes. You wonder what he's doing until you see the corners of his mouth twitch, just slightly. "Wind changes," he whispers. "East to south." The elder nods again. They move accordingly. Every motion is a lesson in humility, how to yield to the rhythm of the world rather than impose upon it. The Apache do not dominate their surroundings. They dissolve into them. As they descend into the valley, the light grows fierce. The air trembles with heat, mirage pools glinting in the distance. The hunters barely seem to notice. Their eyes, trained like hawks, stay sharp. They read signs that would be invisible to most: the scatter of pebbles, the bend of a weed, the silence of a bird. You realize the prayer from before dawn has not ended. It continues in every step they take. Each movement is still part of the offering, each breath part of the conversation with the land. Hours pass, though time loses its meaning here. The hunt itself feels inevitable, like a story already written. When the sun reaches its highest point, the elder signals for rest. They gather beneath a cliff, the shadow cool against their backs. Water is passed from hand to hand, a small amount, enough to wet the mouth. No one drinks greedily. The elder looks at the horizon, where heat waves shimmer like fire. She has given us signs, he says softly. Now we must answer well. He turns to the youngest hunter, the one with the eagle feather on his bow. You will lead the strike. The young man bows his head. His expression is calm, almost serene. He knows this is not an honor of pride, but of responsibility. The group rises again. Their figures merge with the landscape, moving as if carried by the wind itself. And as you watch them disappear into the brilliance of the desert, you understand that what happens next, the hunt, the pursuit, the taking of life, is not the climax of their story. It is simply another verse in an endless song. For the Apache, dawn is not just the beginning of a day. It is a covenant renewed, a quiet promise between earth and people. I will give, if you will walk gently. The sun climbs higher. The wind shifts again, softer now, warmer. The land holds its breath, waiting. The hunt has begun. The air has turned molten, so still that every sound, every motion, seems to hang suspended. The hunters move through it like shadows, each step a sentence written carefully across the sand. Ahead, the plain rolls out in soft undulations, its surface rippling with heat. You taste dust when you breathe. Sweat trails down your neck, and the horizon wavers like smoke. The Apache walk lightly. Always lightly. They know the desert feels everything, each footprint, each tremor of careless motion. They tread as if moving across the body of a living being. The elder raises a hand. Everyone stops. He kneels, fingers brushing the ground. A track, faint, half swallowed by wind, but clear enough to him. The split imprint of a hoof, the slight splay of its edges, a shallow press that means the deer passed here at dawn. He studies the angle of the print, the direction of its toes. She is near, he whispers. You catch it then, a flash of movement at the far edge of the valley, almost swallowed by glare. The deer steps from shadow into light, cautious and elegant, head lifting to test the wind. Its body is lean, its muscles moving like water under skin. The hunters do not reach for their weapons. Not yet. They wait, hearts slowing until they match the pulse of the world. For the Apache, this moment, the instant when the prey comes into view, is the most sacred of all. Because here the lines blur. The hunter and the hunted breathe the same air, share the same heartbeat. In that fragile space between pursuit and mercy, the Apache do not see an enemy. They see a teacher. The elder motions, and the group fans outward, silent as smoke. They do not chase. They move in rhythm with the deer, matching its pauses, its turns. The young man with the eagle feather walks at the center, every nerve alive. The deer begins to graze, unaware of their approach. Its ears twitch, catching distant sounds, then relax again. It steps forward, dips its muzzle to the ground, chewing on dry shoots of grass. The Apache moved closer, still downwind, still patient. Every breath measured, every step an act of respect. You remember what the elder said before dawn. We must answer well. Now you understand. The question was never about hunger, never about survival alone. It was about worthiness, whether they can take a life without breaking the sacred balance that keeps the world whole. The young hunter crouches, eyes fixed on the animal. His bow rises slowly, the string drawn back, silent tension between earth and sky. The arrow gleams faintly, its flint head catching a thread of sunlight. But just as he steadies, the deer lifts its head. Its eyes meet his. Everything stops. In that stillness, something passes between them, an understanding older than speech. The Apache believe that every living thing holds spirit, that death is not an ending but an exchange. The deer offers itself, but only if the hunter's heart is clean. Only if he remembers that he is no greater than what he takes. The young man lowers the bow slightly. His lips move in a whisper. You can't hear the words, but you know their shape, thank you. Then he releases. The arrow flies, a perfect, quiet arc. The sound it makes is not violent, not sharp. It's a sigh, a thread of wind cut loose from the world. The deer stumbles, then kneels as if bowing. No cry escapes it. The hunters rush forward, swift and silent, ending its pain with care. The young man kneels beside the body, his hands trembling slightly. He touches its neck, feeling the last warmth leaving the flesh. His face is solemn, not triumphant. He places his hand over the wound, closes his eyes. The elder stands beside him. "You have done well," he says softly. "Now speak to her." The young man leans close, whispering words that sound like the rustle of grass. When he finishes, he removes the eagle feather from his bow and lays it gently upon the deer's chest. "The spirit must fly," he murmurs. The others bow their heads. For a few breaths, the desert itself seems to pause in witness. Even the wind has gone still. Then the work begins. They move with reverence, not haste. Every cut is deliberate, guided by memory and prayer. The hide is peeled back carefully, the organs removed and set aside with respect. They do not spill blood carelessly. They use it to mark their foreheads, a symbol of connection between lives. You watch as they take what they need, meat for the tribe, sinew for string, bone for tools, and return the rest to the earth. The elder digs a small hollow in the sand, fills it with grass, and lays the heart inside. "She must rest in the land that fed her," he says. They cover the hollow, pressing the sand flat with their palms. Then they step back. For a long time, no one speaks. Finally, the elder looks to the horizon. "We give," he says, "and we take. We breathe in, and we breathe out. This is the way." The hunters nod. Their silence is not empty, it's gratitude given form. When the body is gone and the tools cleaned, they build a small fire from dry twigs. The flames flicker low, barely visible in the harsh light. Into it, the elder tosses a piece of meat, a handful of herbs, and a pinch of cornmeal. The smoke rises straight upward, shimmering in the heat. "The offering," he says. "So the spirit knows it was seen." The scent carries on the wind, a blend of sweetness and iron, of burning sage and life returned to the sky. You can feel the weight of that balance all around you. The Apache live by it in every moment. They do not separate the sacred from the practical. To kill is to pray, to eat is to give thanks, to survive is to honor the endless circle of taking and returning. As the sun dips toward afternoon, the hunters rest beneath the shadow of a rock face. They share strips of dried meat from the last hunt, chewing slowly, savoring. The taste is not merely nourishment, it's memory, a reminder of what was offered before. One of them breaks the silence. "She ran well," he says. The elder nods. "She ran as she should. We must remember her path." They speak of her movements, the way she turned, the way she listened to the wind. They map her life through their words, as though memorizing her spirit. In doing so, they make sure she is not forgotten. When the meal is finished, they wipe their hands in the dust, cleansing themselves of scent and blood. The young hunter sits apart, still staring at his bow. His gaze is distant, his expression unreadable. The elder approaches him, crouching beside him. "You saw her," he says. The young man nods. "And she saw you." Another nod. "That is enough," the elder says, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Never forget her face. It will keep you from killing without reason." The young man looks up. "She was not afraid," he says quietly. "No," the elder replies, "because she knew you carried no hate." They sit together in silence, two shadows merging with the larger shadow of the land. Above them, a hawk drifts lazily, circling the valley. The elder follows it with his eyes. "She carries the spirit now," he says. The hawk tilts its wings, catching the sun. By evening, the hunters are on their way back to camp. The sky is wide and red, streaked with fire. The wind has returned, cool and gentle, lifting the smell of sage and ash. As they walk, the young man hums a low melody, a song without words. The others join softly, voices blending with the wind. It is not celebration, it is remembrance. A song for the deer, for the hunt, for the unbroken thread that binds all living things. You feel it in your chest, the rhythm of it, slow and steady, like a heartbeat shared between species. When they reach the camp, the women and children meet them in quiet ceremony. The meat is laid out on stones, the elders blessing it before it is divided. Smoke rises again, curling into the twilight sky. The fire's glow flickers across faces lined with fatigue and reverence. The young hunter sits near the edge of the circle, watching the flames. The elder joins him once more. "Do you understand now?" he asks. The young man nods. "The animal is not my enemy," he says. "No," the elder agrees. "It never was. The only enemy is forgetting." They sit together in silence, the fire reflecting in their eyes. Above, the first stars appear, scattered across the endless dark. Somewhere beyond them, the hawk still flies, carrying a spirit back into the circle of the world. And in that moment, you understand too. The hunt was never about domination. It was a conversation. A trade of breath, of need, of gratitude. Because in the Apache world, life is not taken, it is shared. And the silence that follows is not absence. It is peace. Night falls again, and the camp exhales. The fire burns steady. The smoke climbs upward, straight and thin. The hunters sleep close to the earth, the day's story sealed in quiet hearts. The wind moves across their faces like a hand, gentle, approving, ancient. You might think the day's work is over, but for the Apache, the true test is never in the hunt. It comes afterward, when the strength of the body gives way to the strength of the spirit. Survival here is not about power. It is about patience, about how long you can listen to the desert before it decides to answer you back. At first light, the camp stirs once more. A few embers glow in the pit. Someone adds a twig, and the flame sighs awake. The air tastes of ash and cold stone. The hunters rise quietly. There is no talk of rest. Their faces are calm, but beneath that calm runs fatigue, the kind that hums low in the muscles, that burrows deep into bone. The previous day's hunt has drained them, yet the journey home will take another 2 days. This is the part of Apache life few outside their world ever saw. The return. The long, burning road between the taking and the giving back. They shoulder their packs, bundles of meat wrapped in hide, tools strapped carefully, water gourds light in the hand but heavy with consequence. The desert waits. The sun climbs fast. By mid-morning, its heat presses like a weight across the shoulders. The light is ruthless, stripping color from everything it touches. The sky is not blue now but white, a sheet of fire stretching from horizon to horizon. Each step becomes its own small act of will. The sand yields, then swallows. The horizon seems to move farther away with every breath. The hunters' shadows shrink beneath them until they seem to dissolve completely. No one complains. No one speaks. They move with the same measured pace as before, conserving energy with every motion. The Apache learned early that exhaustion is not an enemy to defeat but a teacher to obey. The body whispers long before it screams. A man who listens survives. A man who does not dies loudly and soon. You can see how they adapt to the desert's rhythm. When the heat grows unbearable, they do not fight it. They simply stop. They crouch beneath the smallest sliver of shade, a boulder, a crooked cactus, and wait. Breathing slows. Hearts steady. The desert demands stillness, and they give it. The elder speaks without opening his eyes. "We are not faster than the sun," he murmurs. "So we walk when it sleeps." They rest until the light softens, then rise again. The movement is unhurried, ritualistic. They eat sparingly, a handful of roasted mesquite beans, a strip of dried venison. Their canteens are passed hand to hand. One sip each. Water is never wasted. You drink too, feeling the cool liquid slide down your throat like mercy. The elder watches you, his eyes narrowing. Do not drink all at once, he says softly. The earth shares slowly. So must we. He's right. A full swallow feels wrong here, greedy somehow. You sip again, smaller this time, and the water tastes different. It tastes alive. By afternoon, the wind returns, hot, restless, carrying the scent of baked sand. Dust spins into the air, forming small vortices that dance across the plain. The Apache lower their heads and move through it. The world becomes a blur of heat and motion, the edges of things dissolving into light. And still, they walk. When exhaustion finally comes, it comes quietly, like sleep. The youngest hunter stumbles, catches himself, and steadies without a word. His face glistens with sweat. His lips are cracked. The elder glances at him, then stops. They make camp under a rock shelf, the shade thin but enough. No fire this time. The heat still radiates from the ground. The air smells of stone and fatigue. The elder gestures for the young man to sit. He kneels beside him, unties a gourd, and pours a trickle of water over the youth's head. Steam rises immediately. Listen, he says. The desert is not cruel. It only wants truth. When you grow tired, it asks, are you still certain? When you thirst, it asks, do you still respect me? He smiles faintly. You must always answer yes. Even when your body says no. The young man nods, closing his eyes. The group settles into silence again. The air vibrates with heat, but somewhere beyond it, the faint hum of life persists. Insects clicking beneath the sand. The distant cry of a hawk. The slow breathing of men who refuse to break. Hours drift by. The sun begins its long descent, spilling red light across the rocks. The hunters rise again, their shadows stretching tall behind them. The elder takes the lead once more. This time, their journey moves through rougher terrain, dry washes, sharp stones, the occasional spine of mesquite clawing at their legs. You feel each cut, each scrape, but they move as though immune. The Apache have learned to see pain as another voice of the earth. It speaks only when necessary. As darkness comes, they find a narrow canyon and stop. Here, at last, they build a fire, small, smokeless, hidden from the open plain. The flames flicker low, casting long shapes across the rock walls. They sit in a circle, eating what little remains. No one wastes a bite. Every chew feels deliberate, reverent. When the food is gone, they rest their hands in the dust, grounding themselves. The elder's voice breaks the quiet. In the old days, he says, the young men were tested this way. They were sent alone into the desert, with no food, no water. They were told to walk until they met their spirit, or until the earth decided to take them back. He looks into the fire. Those who returned were never the same. They had learned the truth of endurance, that strength is not what carries you. It is what remains when everything else leaves. The wind moves through the canyon, carrying the scent of sage. Sparks lift, rise, and vanish into the night. You understand then that endurance, for the Apache, is more than survival. It is devotion. It is faith made visible in the act of continuing. They sleep lightly that night. The stars press close, so bright they seem to whisper secrets. Somewhere, a coyote sings, lonely, mournful, beautiful. The sound flows down the canyon walls and into dreams. By dawn, the air has cooled, and the world feels new again. The men wake, their faces calm, their movements sure. Fatigue still lingers, but it no longer owns them. They have passed through it. The elder rises, brushes dust from his hands. The desert has tested us, he says, and she has found us alive. They break camp without ceremony. No words, no lingering. Only motion, quiet, fluid, purposeful. The horizon glows with the first fire of morning, and they walk into it. As you follow, you feel it too, the ache, the dryness, the weight of every step, but also something deeper. A stillness blooming inside you, steady and fierce. The same stillness that lives in the eyes of the Apache, in the hawk's glide, in the patient rhythm of the land itself. You realize now what their endurance truly means. It is not resistance. It is surrender. The strength to let the desert strip you bare until only truth remains. The sand crunches beneath your feet. The wind rises. The sun returns bright and merciless. And yet you walk. The night descends like a soft hand. The desert exhales, releasing the day's heat in long, invisible sighs. Every stone that scorched your feet at noon now radiates a patient warmth. Above, the sky unfolds wider than thought, its stars bright enough to make you forget that light ever had a limit. The Apache walk until that light is all that remains, the hush of constellations shimmering over black earth. Then they stop, wordless, as if the land itself has whispered here. No campfire rises. No loud motion marks the end of their march. The hunters simply drop their bundles, move through the darkness, and begin the quiet work of night. You might expect them to rest, but rest is never careless here. Every gesture, even sleep, must be earned. The elder crouches, running his fingers through the sand until he finds a place sheltered from the wind. The others follow his lead, their bodies folding into rhythm. Then, at last, he begins to build the fire. Not the way you would, no heap of sticks, no burst of flame. What he builds is more like a secret. He gathers small stones first, arranging them in a circle no wider than his palm. Into its heart he places a nest of dry grass and crushed cactus fiber, soft as animal fur. A few narrow sticks are laid across the top, then dusted with ash from the last fire. The circle is half covered with flat rocks to trap the heat. It looks like nothing, a handful of debris left by the wind. The elder strikes two pieces of flint together. Once. Twice. A faint spark flares, vanishes. Then another catches, glowing faintly in the nest of grass. He bends close, blowing gently through cupped hands. You hear it then, the smallest sound, a soft whoosh, barely louder than breath. The glow deepens to ember red. No flame leaps upward. No smoke curls into the sky. Only heat, clean and invisible. Fire without smoke, he says quietly. The earth's breath, not man's boast. He motions for the others to come closer. They form a loose ring around the hidden fire, their faces lit by its secret warmth. In that muted glow, their eyes reflect the color of the stones, not the color of flame. The Apache learned long ago that survival depended on this kind of fire. A visible blaze could betray them to enemies miles away, could warn the prey before dawn, could call down the wind itself to smother their plans. But a fire without smoke, small, silent, contained, was life. It cooked, warmed, and never revealed. The elder reaches into the circle and places a thin strip of dried meat over the stones. It sizzles softly, the sound swallowed by night. The scent that rises is faint, pure. Around you, the desert hums quietly. A coyote calls far off. The wind brushes the grass, whispering over the rocks. One of the younger hunters breaks the silence. How do you make it so clean? The elder smiles faintly. Fire listens, he says. If you feed it with fear, it roars. If you feed it with patience, it purrs. He picks up a handful of sand, sprinkles it lightly over the edge of the stones. The flame beneath dims but does not die. It must be taught to stay small. He continues, like a child who learns to whisper in a sacred place. The others nod. They understand that this lesson is larger than fire. It is about control, of heat, of hunger, of self. To the Apache, mastery is measured not by how much power you can unleash, but by how quietly you can hold it. They eat in silence, each tearing a piece of the cooked meat and chewing slowly. The taste is smoky without smoke, earthy, deep. It carries the memory of the hunt, of the animal's spirit. Nothing is wasted, not even flavor. When the meal is done, the elder brushes away the ashes with the back of his hand. The stones cool quickly. Within minutes, there is no sign that anything burned there at all. You feel the impulse to speak, to marvel, but something about the moment stops you. Words would sound too loud, too crude against such perfection. Instead, you watch as the hunters lean back against the rocks, their faces tilted toward the stars. The elder begins to hum, low, continuous, a sound that seems to come not from his throat but from the earth beneath him. The melody moves through the air like heat itself, slow, rising, vanishing. The others join in, their voices blending until it's impossible to tell where one ends and another begins. It's not a song in the way you understand songs. It's a vibration, a keeping of time with the pulse of the desert. The fire glows faintly between them, no brighter than the reflection of starlight in a pool of water. After a while, the humming stops. The silence that follows is vast and comfortable. The elder speaks again, his voice rough with memory. In the old days, he says, when our people moved by night, we made fires that could not be seen, only felt. We said the spirits of the mountains were watching, and too much light would blind them. He gestures toward the horizon, where dark ridges cut the sky. The fire must be as humble as its maker. The land already shines enough. He looks down at the embers, now fading. Even this, too much light, can be dangerous. Fire gives life, but it also reminds us that we can never control the earth. We only borrow her warmth. The hunters listen, eyes lowered. You sense that this wisdom has been passed down through generations, refined like flint until every word strikes true. The elder picks up a handful of sand again, this time pressing it over the glowing heart of the fire. The faint light vanishes. Darkness closes in completely, soft and total. Yet the warmth remains, seeping through the ground, through your skin. He looks around the circle. Now, he says softly, we rest. The fire sleeps, but it remembers us. And they do rest, folding into their blankets, breathing steady and deep. The stars lean closer, as if curious about the people who can hide their light so well. You lie there among them, the night pressing close. Your body still hums with heat from the hidden coals beneath the sand. You close your eyes, and for the first time you begin to feel what the Apache mean by invisibility, not disappearance, but harmony. To vanish here is not to cease existing. It is to exist perfectly, without disruption, without waste, without mark. You drift between waking and sleep. The sounds of the desert weave around you. The wind sighing through sagebrush, the shuffle of a lizard on stone, the far-off pulse of thunder over mountains unseen. Each sound blends with the next until it becomes a kind of silence, alive, breathing, infinite. In that silence, you sense the faint heartbeat of the buried fire beneath you. Still warm, still whispering its lesson. The Apache understood that even the smallest flame is sacred. It carries the memory of lightning, the breath of stars. To make fire without smoke is not to hide it, but to purify it, to return it to the quiet it came from. Before sleep takes you, you imagine how many nights like this have passed before yours. How many unseen fires have burned across these same plains. The thought stretches backward through centuries until it feels like the ground itself is dreaming with you. Somewhere, a hawk cries in the dark, circling above the sleeping camp. The sound lingers a moment, then fades. The desert exhales once more. The coals beneath you cool, sigh, and return to dust. There is no mark, no trace, no smoke. Only warmth, and the memory of light that never had to shout to be seen. Dawn returns softly, a pale breath spilling over the horizon. The stars dim one by one, bowing out of the sky's stage as the first light crawls across the sand. The air is cool, almost sweet, alive with the scent of night flowers folding into themselves. Somewhere, far off, a coyote yips once and then falls silent, as if offering a farewell to darkness. You wake slowly, the warmth of the buried fire still clinging to the earth beneath you. Around you, the camp is already in motion. The Apache do not greet the day with noise. There is no clatter of pots, no shouts, no hurry. Only motion, the clean, quiet rhythm of people who know their place in the world. The elder moves among them, bare feet whispering through sand. He carries a small woven basket and a long wooden stick, its end sharpened to a point. He gestures for you to follow. The land provides, he says, but only to those who ask gently. You walk together out of the camp and into the wide, open world. The sun is still low, and the land glows gold and red, soft as breath. The desert looks empty, but to Apache eyes, it is a feast waiting to be found. The elder stops beside a spiny cactus. Its tall green columns rise from the sand like watchmen, their ribs glistening with dew. Saguaro, he says. Old friend. He runs a hand along its skin, careful not to touch the thorns. We take only what it gives freely. He points to a small, round fruit near the top, deep red, split open like a wound, its flesh glistening with seeds. He uses his stick to nudge it loose, catching it in the basket before it falls. The fruit bursts slightly, staining the fibers crimson. He offers you a piece. The juice runs across your tongue, sweet, sharp, alive with sunlight. This is how the earth speaks, he says. In flavor, not in words. As you walk, he shows you more of the desert's secrets. There are roots that hold water deeper than any well, yucca, mesquite, agave. He kneels beside a clump of desert onions, their thin green stalks barely visible. With the point of his stick, he loosens the sand, revealing the bulb below. Eat this when the sun burns your mouth, he says. It cools the body and clears the mind. He slices one open, and the smell rises, sharp, clean, strangely soothing. Further on, a woman joins you, her hair braided with strands of grass. She carries a basket of woven willow, its base lined with leaves. She kneels at the foot of a creosote bush, gathering its tiny yellow flowers. For medicine, she murmurs. Boiled with water, it fights fever. Burned in smoke, it cleanses the air of sickness. Every plant here, every insect, every stone has a purpose. Nothing is random. The Apache learned long ago that the desert, though harsh, never denies what is truly needed. It only hides its generosity beneath patience. You come upon a small patch of prickly pear. Their broad pads glisten faintly with morning dew, studded with fruit the color of fire. The elder slices one open with his knife, scraping the needles aside. He scoops out the pulp with the blade's flat edge, offering it to you. It's cool and slightly bitter, but full of water. When you cannot find a stream, he says, eat the cactus. When you cannot find shade, make your own with its branches. When you cannot find hope, remember that even in a place like this, sweetness grows behind thorns. He smiles faintly, eyes creased against the light. As the morning warms, the small baskets fill. Some hold fruit, others roots or seeds. The elder pauses now and then to sprinkle cornmeal on the ground, a gesture of thanks for what's been taken. He never rushes, never forgets. Gratitude to the Apache is as necessary as food itself. When the sun climbs higher, the air begins to shimmer. Heat presses down, thick and heavy. You return to camp, where others have begun preparing what the desert offered. A woman crushes mesquite pods with a smooth stone, grinding them into a fine, golden flour. The smell drifts through the air, nutty, sweet, like warm bread. Nearby, another woman tends a shallow clay pot over a smokeless fire. She stirs with a long stick, adding water from a gourd. The mixture thickens into something between porridge and dough. Children sit around her, watching with solemn fascination. The elder sits beside you, his basket now empty. This is the desert's table, he says. It never looks full, but it always gives enough. You eat together, small portions, simple and unadorned. The mesquite bread is dense and sweet, the cactus fruit bright against the tongue. Water, gathered from dew-soaked cloths laid overnight on stone, tastes like nothing else you've ever known, clear, honest, alive. No one rushes. No one takes more than their share. Meals here are ceremonies of balance, reminders that taking is always paired with giving. Afterward, the camp settles into the shade of midday. Some rest, others work, mending baskets, scraping hides, repairing tools. The younger boys chase each other in quiet games, their laughter swallowed quickly by the heat. The elder watches them, then turns to you. People think the desert starves you, he says. But that's not true. It only teaches you how to eat slowly, how to see what others walk past. He picks up a dried seed pod, shaking it so that the tiny seeds rattle inside. Even the wind feeds us. He continues. It carries pollen, cools our bodies, sings to the animals. The world is always feeding itself. We are just part of that circle. His words settle into the air, as steady as the hum of insects in the distance. By late afternoon, the sky begins to change again, its color deepening, the light turning softer, gold spilling across the ridges. The heat eases, replaced by a gentle breeze that smells of sage and dust. The women gather their tools. The children's laughter fades. The camp begins to move again, quiet and deliberate. Before leaving, the elder walks to the edge of the clearing. He kneels, places his hands flat against the ground, and speaks in a low voice. You recognize the tone, half prayer, half conversation. Thank you, he says. For the fruit, the water, the breath. He pauses. Tomorrow, we will give you back what remains. He stands, brushing sand from his palms. Always return something, he says to you. Even a handful of dust. The earth remembers every gift and every wound. The camp gathers their bundles, leaving behind nothing but faint footprints that the wind will soon erase. As they walk, the elder's words echo in your mind. The desert's table never looks full, but it always gives enough. The sun dips low, casting long shadows over the land. The horizon burns orange and purple. The hunters walk ahead, their silhouettes black against the glow. The elder's basket swings lightly at his side, empty but not barren. And as the first stars appear, you begin to understand what the Apache have always known. Hunger is not the enemy. It is a reminder, an invitation to listen more deeply, to see more clearly, to live with reverence in a world that owes you nothing and yet gives you everything. The wind moves across the sand, whispering through the brush. The day fades. The earth breathes. And once again, the people walk on, fed by the silence, by the stars, and by the endless generosity of the land that holds them. Evening folds itself around the desert like a soft blanket of ash. The horizon, still burning faintly with the last light of day, gives way to violet shadow. The air cools. The first stars emerge, bright, patient, eternal. You walk among the Apache as they move quietly through the dark, their silhouettes blending into the land as if they've been part of it forever. The smell of mesquite lingers in the air. Somewhere behind you, the small, smokeless fire fades into memory. Ahead, the elder walks steadily, his staff tapping lightly against the earth, a heartbeat for the road. No one speaks. The silence isn't emptiness, it's reverence. Every footstep, every breath, is a continuation of the same prayer that began at dawn. At last, the elder raises his hand. The group stops. They've reached a hollow between two cliffs, shielded from the wind. The stars here are so clear you can see their reflections in the sand. The hunters gather around, forming a circle. The young ones carry what remains of yesterday's hunt, strips of dried meat, bones cleaned and polished, the hide folded neatly, still smelling faintly of life. The deer's spirit lingers among them like unseen smoke. The elder kneels, setting his staff beside him. He gestures for everyone to sit. Then, slowly, he begins to speak. The hunt is not finished, he says. His voice is low, steady. Taking a life is only half the story. The other half is giving it back. He looks around the circle. Faces gleam faintly in the starlight, eyes fixed on him with quiet respect. The deer gave herself, he continues. She was not ours to take, but she offered her body so that we might live. To eat without thanks is to invite hunger again. To kill without balance is to lose your way. He reaches into a small pouch and draws out a pinch of cornmeal. The grains shimmer like tiny stars in his hand. He sprinkles them over the earth. For the one who ran, he says. For the one who fed us. For the one who returns to the soil. The others follow, each adding something to the offering, a piece of dried meat, a feather, a few drops of water, a whisper of breath. The wind picks up, carrying their gratitude across the desert. You can feel it, the quiet weight of the moment, the gravity of their belief. Here, nothing dies alone. Nothing lives without purpose. Every act of survival must be balanced with humility. The elder begins a low chant. It's not a song of triumph, but of remembrance. The rhythm is simple, ancient. Each verse is a promise. We take only what we need. We waste nothing. We walk in balance. One by one, the hunters join in, their voices weaving together like threads of smoke. The sound fills the hollow, then drifts upward into the dark, where the stars seem to lean closer to listen. When the chant ends, silence settles again. It feels fuller now, as if the air itself has been sanctified. The elder looks at the youngest hunter, the one who loosed the arrow. Do you understand why we thank the animal? The boy nods, but the elder waits. The boy hesitates, then speaks softly. Because she chose us. The elder smiles. Yes. And because the world remembers every act. Every cut. Every gift. If we forget gratitude, the land forgets us. He gestures toward the horizon. Once, there were people who hunted for pride. They took more than they needed. They left bones to bleach in the sun, blood to waste in the sand. The earth grew silent around them. The animals moved away. Even the wind stopped speaking their names. His gaze sharpens. That is the true death, not hunger, not thirst, but to be forgotten by the world you live in. You feel the truth of it deep in your chest. The desert holds memory like stone holds heat. Every careless act leaves a mark that lingers long after its maker is gone. When the elder finishes, he stands and motions for the others to rise. The ceremony continues, not with words but with work. The bones are ground to powder with stones, mixed with water, and returned to the ground. The hide, softened with fat, is stretched and hung in the cool night air. The sinew is coiled neatly for bowstrings. Every piece of the animal finds purpose. Nothing is thrown away. Even the hooves are placed near the fire. When they dry and crack, they'll be used to make glue or small rattles for the children's dances. A woman tends a pot over the buried embers. Inside, the last scraps of meat simmer with herbs gathered earlier that morning, sage for strength, wild onion for clarity, creosote for protection. The scent rises, clean and grounding. When the stew is ready, bowls are passed around the circle. Everyone eats together, slowly, quietly, with the deliberate focus of those who know each bite carries the spirit of another life. Before eating, each person dips a finger into the broth and flicks a drop onto the ground. For you, they murmur. For balance, you taste the stew. It's rich, smoky, alive with the flavors of the desert. But beyond taste, there's something else, an awareness, a presence. You can feel it in your chest, a warmth that isn't just from the food. This is what it means to eat with respect. To recognize that survival is a covenant, not a conquest. As the meal ends, the elder sits back, wiping his hands with a piece of cloth. He looks into the distance, toward the dark line of mountains. There is an old saying, he says. The animal gives you its life once. You give it back every day you live rightly. He meets your eyes. That is the Apache way. The others nod. The fire's warmth softens their faces, casting them in tones of gold and amber. The night deepens around them, yet there is no fear in their stillness. Only harmony. The wind picks up again, carrying the faint scent of sage and smoke. You can almost feel it brushing your skin like a hand, gentle, approving. The elder lifts his staff once more, pressing its end into the sand. The circle closes, he says. The deer runs again in another form. And tomorrow, when the sun returns, we will ask the earth for her guidance once more. The people echo softly, once more. Then the fire is buried, the ashes cooled, and the night reclaims its dominion. As you lie down beneath the stars, the air feels lighter, purer. You understand now that for the Apache, ethics are not written in law or scripture. They are written in breath, in the taste of water, in the heartbeat that keeps time with the wind. To live rightly here is to live in acknowledgement of every life that touches yours. You close your eyes, listening to the faint whisper of sand shifting in the breeze. It sounds almost like words, old ones, carried across centuries. Take gently. Give back. Walk with care. The desert hums in response, steady and endless. And somewhere, in that vast, dark silence, the spirit of the deer runs again, free, unseen, eternal. Morning rises gentle and gold, as if the sky itself wishes not to disturb what it watches below. The desert exhales the cool of the night. Thin tendrils of mist cling briefly to the ground before melting into sun. You wake to the low hum of voices, soft, patient, melodic. Not song, not speech. Instruction. The Apache camp is alive again, but not hurried. There is no chaos in their mornings. Every movement carries purpose, every sound carries care. The older men and women move through the camp like quiet rivers, and around them the children orbit, small, bright, endlessly curious. Today is not a day for hunting or gathering. It is a day for teaching. You sit among them as the elders gather the young beneath the shade of a broad cottonwood whose roots have known generations. The wind stirs through its leaves with the sound of distant rain. The elder you have followed since dawn stands at the center, staff planted lightly in the earth. The children circle around him, cross-legged, their faces turned up in expectation. Some fidget, some stare at the ground, drawing patterns in the dust. He waits until the stillness settles naturally, until even the smallest ones stop whispering. Then he begins. What is the first rule of the world? He asks. A few voices answer at once, overlapping softly. To listen, says one. To give thanks, says another. The elder nods. Yes. To listen and to give thanks, because the world speaks. And if you are not quiet, you will not hear her. He points toward the horizon, where the mountains shimmer in morning light. Out there, everything teaches you something. The hawk teaches patience. The coyote teaches cleverness. The wind teaches when to move and when to wait. A small boy raises his hand timidly. And what does the sun teach? The elder smiles, a slow crinkling of his weathered face. The sun teaches us not to forget where life comes from. But it also teaches humility, because even it must bow to the night. The children murmur in appreciation, their eyes wide. Another elder, a woman whose hair falls long and silver like moonlight, steps forward with a woven basket. Inside are small objects, stones, feathers, seeds, bones, bits of wood. She kneels, setting the basket between them. Choose one, she says. The children reach in, each selecting something with care. A girl chooses a small white stone. A boy picks a feather. Another takes a handful of seeds. The woman looks at them, her eyes sharp and kind all at once. Now tell me what you hold. It's a rock, the girl with the stone says. The woman shakes her head gently. No. Look again. The girl frowns, studying the stone. She turns it over in her hand, feels its smoothness, the faint warmth from the sun. It's old? She tries. Older than your grandmother's grandmother, the woman says. That stone remembers the first rain. It has seen every sunrise that ever touched this land. When you hold it, you hold time. The girl's eyes widen. She nods, clutching it reverently. The boy with the feather turns it in his fingers. Mine is light, he says. Like air. The woman kneels beside him. Yes. It once carried a bird through the sky. When you lift it, the sky remembers. So you must hold it gently. If you break it, the sky will mourn. Each child is guided this way, not corrected, but deepened. The Apache way of teaching is not command but invitation. The elders ask questions that open more questions, each leading closer to understanding. No lesson begins with do or don't. It begins with look and listen. When the circle ends, the children scatter into the desert for their second lesson, observation. They walk in pairs, barefoot, their elders following at a distance. The ground is cool still, the sand soft beneath their feet. They are told to move without speaking, to let the world reveal itself. A little girl stops near a cactus. She crouches, touching the sand at its base. Ants, she whispers. The elder nods. Watch what they teach you. They watch. The ants move in a perfect line, carrying seeds twice their size, disappearing into a small hole between roots. The girl frowns. They don't stop, she says. They stop when they need to, replies the elder. They rest in the shadows under the earth. The lesson is not to move forever, it is to know when to move. Further on, a group of boys spot a hawk circling above. They shield their eyes against the sun, tracking its motion. Why does he turn like that? One asks. To see the world from every side, answers another boy. The elder laughs softly. Good. The hawk teaches you not to trust the first sight of a thing. Fly around it. See it from all directions. Only then can you say you understand. Every moment becomes a classroom. Every plant, every animal, every breeze is a teacher waiting to be heard. By midday, the children return, dusty and smiling. The elders sit them down in the shade again. They share what they've learned, not answers, but stories. I saw a lizard run on his back legs, one says, grinning. And what did he teach you? Asks the elder. That he doesn't mind looking foolish if it keeps him alive. Laughter ripples through the group. The elder smiles. Wisdom hides in humor, too. Another child holds up a shell found in the sand. This came from the ocean, she says. But the ocean is far away. The elder nods. Once, long ago, water covered this land. The shell reminds us that the world changes, and we must change with it. If you listen to the shell, you can still hear the sea. He holds it to her ear, and for a moment you swear you hear it too, a low, endless hum, the memory of waves crashing on shores long turned to dust. The lesson ends when the sun begins to lean westward. The children gather their objects, placing them back into the basket. Each whispers a small thank you before letting go. The woman covers the basket with a piece of woven cloth. These things will rest now, she says. Tomorrow, we will ask new questions. As the camp prepares for evening, you notice how the older children move differently. Their steps are quieter, their eyes sharper. They watch the sky the way their elders do, reading stories in the color of the clouds. They speak less, but when they do, their words are measured, deliberate. Learning, for the Apache, is not about filling the mind, it's about emptying it enough to let the world's voice come through. As the sun sets, the sky burns in shades of gold and crimson. The children sit in a line, watching the day's final light fade. The elder sits among them, silent now. The only sound is the whisper of the wind through the cottonwood leaves. He points to the horizon. What is the sun teaching now? The smallest child answers without hesitation. That even light needs rest. The elder's eyes soften. Yes, he says. And that endings are only beginnings turned the other way. He stands, brushing dust from his hands. Go. Eat. Play. Laugh. These are lessons too. The children rise, scattering into the twilight, their laughter carrying on the wind. You remain there a moment longer, watching the elder as he watches them. His expression is quiet pride, not of ownership, but of continuity. These little ones, he says softly, are the future of our songs. If they forget the silence, the land will grow lonely. He glances at you, eyes gleaming with the reflection of the dying sun. So we teach them to listen, to see, to walk with care. That is all the world asks of us. The first stars appear, one by one. The children's laughter fades as night gathers them back into its gentle arms. The elder's voice becomes a whisper, meant not for you, but for the dark itself. May their footsteps always find the rhythm of the earth. And as the wind stirs the sand, you realize that in this place, every generation is not born from the past but into the land itself, learning again what it means to live with it, not above it. The fire is lit once more, low, smokeless, steady. The children sleep. The elders watch the stars. The desert listens. And the lessons continue, carried forward on the breath of those who remember. Night has deepened again, soft, wide, endless. The stars burn bright and patient above the desert, their light washing over stone and sage like silver dust. The children have fallen asleep, curled together near the low, silent fire. Their dreams are quiet ones, stitched from lessons of wind and song and gratitude. Beyond them, the elders sit in a half-circle. They speak little, letting the hush of the land fill the spaces between their breaths. The air carries the smell of cooling stone and cedar smoke. You can almost feel the earth breathing beneath you, slow, steady, eternal. It is here, beneath this watchful sky, that another kind of teaching begins. The one that turns hunters into warriors. The elder sits across from you, the firelight painting soft shadows across his face. He lifts his staff and draws a line in the sand, long, straight, deliberate. This, he says, is the path of the hunter. Then, beside it, he draws another, parallel but fainter. And this, he continues, is the path of the warrior. He pauses, looking at both lines. They walk close together, but they are not the same. The hunter follows the world's rhythm. He listens, he waits, he moves when the land moves. The warrior, though, carries another burden, the protection of that rhythm. Where the hunter seeks balance, the warrior must defend it. You can hear the faint whisper of wind brushing across the sand, lifting a few grains, erasing the edges of his lines. He smiles faintly, watching them blur. See? Even the desert reminds us, no path is permanent. He leans back, his voice softer now. When the Apache were hunted, when soldiers and settlers came, we learned what it meant to carry both paths at once. To feed our people and defend them. To hunt the deer one day and the enemy the next. His words are not bitter. They are factual, weathered, like stones worn smooth by years. He gestures toward the dark horizon, where mountains loom like sleeping giants. That is where the warriors trained, he says. Up in the high country, where the air thins and the body forgets comfort. Their boys learn to move like wind, to hide in stone, to speak with silence. He stares into the fire, seeing something long gone. We had no armor, no horses at first, no walls, but we had patience. We had the land. And the land, he taps his chest lightly, had us. You listen as he tells of the old training. How boys, barely old enough to hold a bow, were sent to live alone in the wilderness. No food but what they could find, no shelter but what they could build. They learned to move barefoot across thorn and rock without sound, to drink dew from leaves, to track stars like rivers in the sky. Their trials were not about strength, but silence. Endurance. restraint. Any fool can fight, the elder says. But to wait, to choose when not to strike, that is the mark of a true warrior. He reaches into the sand again and smooths the lines he'd drawn. The best fighters were never seen until they were gone. The enemy would find only footprints, if they found anything at all. You can almost imagine it, small bands moving through canyons, faces painted with ash and clay, their eyes sharp as obsidian. They slip through the night like smoke, vanish at sunrise, then strike from nowhere when threatened. The elder's voice lowers. We learned the language of the desert, and she taught us how to disappear. We could crawl for miles without leaving a mark, hide behind a single bush and become part of its shadow. He glances at you, and in his expression you see no pride, only memory. The desert is a weapon to those who respect it. She hides you if you honor her. She exposes you if you boast. Around you, the others nod quietly. They have all heard these stories before, yet none look bored. Each word lands like a heartbeat, reminding them who they are, who they remain. As the fire flickers lower, the elder continues. When the time came for battle, we did not charge. We flowed. We became wind, water, dust. We never wasted breath, never wasted motion. To kill without thought is to wound yourself. To kill with purpose is to restore balance. He looks into the flames. And balance is all. You realize then that even in war, their code remained unbroken. Violence, for them, was never separate from spirit. It was part of the same conversation with the earth. Every arrow loosed, every strike made, carried prayer in its motion. He tells you of one warrior he knew long ago, a man who moved so quietly that coyotes did not startle when he passed. He once said, the elder recalls, to defeat the enemy, you must learn his heartbeat. Not to break it, but to know when it stops belonging to him and returns to the land. The others murmur softly, remembering. Their battles were not the kind you see in books or painted on walls. There were no flags, no drums. Only dust, breath, silence, and sudden motion. And when it was over, they left the ground as they had found it, untouched, unnamed. The elder sighs. We fought for what could not be owned. The mountains, the rivers, the breathe between sunrise and dusk. How can a man claim what he did not make? He gestures to the stars. The sky belongs to everyone who can still look up. The fire burns lower still. Its warmth touches only the edges of the circle now. War, he says, taught us nothing new, only reminded us what we already knew. That survival is not about power. It is about harmony. The land can live without us. But we cannot live without her. A long silence follows. The wind picks up, brushing over your skin like cool cloth. The night feels alive again, aware, listening. Then, from somewhere in the dark, a single sharp sound clang. Metal against stone. You turn, startled, but no one else moves. The elder smiles faintly. A warrior testing his blade, he explains. Even in peace, we keep our tools ready. But readiness is not aggression. It is respect. A young man steps into the faint firelight, holding a knife he's been honing. Its edge gleams faintly, catching the starlight. He squats beside the elder, holding it out. Sharp, the elder says, nodding. But remember, it cuts both ways. Use it without care, and it will remember your mistake. The young man bows his head, then sheathes the blade. The gesture is small, but you sense its weight, a ceremony as sacred as prayer. The night deepens. The talk fades. The elders sit in stillness, their gazes turned to the stars. You think about what you've heard, the thin line between hunter and warrior, the way both walked the same road but carried different burdens. The elder's voice returns one last time, soft as a sigh. To protect the land is to protect yourself. To fight without anger is to live without fear. That is how the people endure. He leans back, closing his eyes. And when the fight ends, the hunter remains. The cycle begins again. You look out across the desert. The horizon glows faintly, promising dawn. You can almost see them there, the shapes of the old warriors moving through shadow, their bows silent, their footsteps light, their eyes always searching for the next horizon. The wind carries their memory like a song too soft to fade. The fire dies. The stars remain. The people sleep. And somewhere, unseen, the desert whispers, balance. The fire is down to its final breath. A single thread of ember glows, soft as a pulse beneath the ash, fading and returning, fading again. The wind has quieted, and the desert seems to lean in, listening. Even the stars hold their light a little steadier, as though they too are waiting for what comes next. The Apache do not sleep yet. This is the hour of song. It begins the way all sacred things do, so quietly that you almost don't notice. A hum rises from one of the older men, low and rough at first, like a river feeling its way through stone. It carries no words, only vibration. The tone vibrates in your ribs before it ever reaches your ears. Then another joins him, a younger voice this time, higher and smoother, weaving around the first like smoke curling into sky. Then another and another until the night fills with sound, layered, patient, ancient. This is not music meant to be performed. It is meant to be felt. It is a bridge between worlds, the living and the unseen, the hunter and the hunted, the land and the sky. The elder closes his eyes. His hand taps slightly against his chest, keeping time with a rhythm older than language. Listen, he murmurs. The earth sings back. You tilt your head, and you can almost hear it, the faint echo from the canyon walls, the low hum of the sand cooling after heat, the whisper of air slipping through thorn and stone. It's as if the whole world hums in response, finding its pitch in the chorus of human breath. The melody swells slowly. It is not joyful, not mournful, something between the two. A song of continuation, of recognition. One of the women begins to shake a rattle made from a dried gourd filled with seeds. The sound is like rain against hollow bone. A drum joins next, a skin stretched tight over a clay pot, struck with an open palm in heartbeat rhythm, thump, thump, thump. Children stir in their blankets, blinking awake. They do not interrupt. They listen, small faces lit by starlight and ember glow. To be born Apache is to grow up inside this music. It is not a thing you learn, it is a thing you remember. The elder's voice rises above the others now, carrying words, not in English, but in the soft, fluid syllables of the Apache tongue. The sounds roll like water, pause like breath, break like thunder. You do not need translation to understand. The meaning hums through tone alone, gratitude, humility, the endless bond between life and death. You feel it in your body, the same rhythm as the heartbeat, as footsteps in sand, as wind through canyon. They sing to the spirits of the hunt, to the animals that have given life, to the mountains that keep their stories, to the rivers that still flow beneath the skin of the earth. They sing to the stars that have guided them, to the fire that warmed their ancestors, to the silence that carries their memory. Each voice joins and falls away, joins and falls away. The song has no beginning and no end. It is a circle, like everything else. The elder opens his eyes and looks toward the horizon, where the black outline of the mountains cuts across the night sky. That is where the songs come from, he says softly, half to you, half to himself. From the bones of the mountains. When we sing, we wake them. His voice blends back into the music, deeper now, steadier. The wind stirs again, carrying with it the faint scent of sage and rain long past. The air feels charged, alive, expectant. The song seems to pull something invisible out of the ground, something you can't see but can feel pressing against your skin, rising in your chest. You realize that this music isn't only for the living, it's for the dead too. For those whose footprints have faded into the dust but whose presence lingers in every stone. They are all here, gathered in the circle of sound, the ancestors, the spirits, the land itself. The voices of the living mingle with those unseen until they are indistinguishable. You close your eyes, and the boundaries of your body blur. The warmth of the earth beneath you, the coolness of the night air, the rhythm of the drums, they all merge into one sensation. You are not outside of the desert anymore. You are part of it. When the song reaches its peak, the elder lifts his hands, palms open to the sky. His voice drops into a lower register, vibrating through the bones of the ground. The others follow. The drumming slows. The rattles hush. The sound becomes one long breath drawn by many lungs at once. And then silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence after meaning, when everything has been said that can be said, and the rest belongs only to the stars. The elder's voice returns, barely above a whisper. Do you feel it? You nod, though you're not sure what it is. It's not something you can name. It's presence. Stillness. The sensation of belonging to everything. He smiles faintly. That is the desert's song. Not the one we sing, but the one that sings through us. The others begin to hum again, softer this time, their voices almost indistinguishable from the sigh of the wind. The rhythm slows until it matches the pace of breath, the pace of rest. One by one, they fade into silence. The rattles stop. The drum stills. The stars seem brighter now, as if the sky itself has been cleared by the sound. The elder stands, brushing sand from his hands. Now the world remembers us, he says, and we remember it. He walks to the edge of the camp and looks out across the plain. The faintest glow touches the far horizon, the earliest hint of dawn. Every song calls the sun. He murmurs, even those sung to the night. He turns back toward the fire, now just a faint red eye in the sand. The song ends when the sun answers. That is how we know we have been heard. The camp falls quiet again, everyone watching the sky. Slowly, the light grows, brushing color across the edges of the world. You feel the last note of the song lingering in your bones, vibrating quietly long after the sound has stopped. The wind carries it onward, spreading it across the desert's vast skin, through canyon and brush, over the bones of animals and the tracks of men. It will travel until it finds another voice to join it, another circle to continue it. Because the song of the desert never truly ends. It only pauses, waiting for breath, for a sunrise, for the next heart brave enough to sing. The elder's eyes close as the light touches his face. And now, he says softly, the silence begins again. The people rise, gathering their blankets, their tools, their baskets. The camp dissolves like mist, leaving only footprints that the wind will soon erase. The sun climbs, slow and golden, spilling warmth over the sleeping stones. The land glows as if singing back, wordless, eternal. And somewhere in that vast, shimmering silence, the desert's song continues, not in melody, not in language, but in the quiet rhythm of life that never breaks. The desert glows like an ember at dawn, soft light spilling over stone, painting the sand in colors no name can hold. The last echoes of the night's song hang in the air like smoke, fading gently, but never truly gone. The Apache rise with the sun, quiet and certain, their movements unhurried, graceful, deliberate. You've seen them wake this way before, but today feels different. Something in the stillness carries weight, a kind of final knowing. You stand among them, watching as they gather what little they own, the baskets, the bows, the hide blankets folded tight. The fire pit is filled, the ashes buried. No trace remains. Within minutes, the camp becomes what it always was, a breath returned to the wind. The elder steps past you, his staff tracing a faint line in the sand. His voice is calm. This is how we leave, he says, as if we were never here. He looks out over the horizon, the line where the sky meets the land in a pale shimmer. Because the desert remembers without needing scars. You follow him, your feet crunching softly in the sand. The others walk ahead, small figures against the vastness. The air is cool still, but you can already feel the day gathering its heat, coiling it like a snake preparing to strike. The elder glances at you, his eyes bright under the shadow of his brow. People think this place kills, he says. They are wrong. It only tells the truth. He bends down, scooping a handful of sand, letting it sift slowly through his fingers. And the truth is simple. Most hearts cannot stand to be seen. You walk on, the sound of his words folding into the rhythm of your steps. The desert stretches forever, open, unbroken, endless. There are no paths here, no boundaries, no walls. Only horizon. Only sky. For a moment, you imagine yourself alone in this place. No camp, no elders, no song, just the vast weight of silence pressing against your chest. You picture the sun climbing higher, the water gone, the wind hot and heavy. You picture the long hours when the earth speaks not a word. Could you endure it? You remember how the Apache moved, each step measured, each breath taken with purpose. How they listened before they acted, waited before they spoke. Their endurance was not in muscle or bone, but in patience. They did not conquer the desert. They became it. The elder stops at the crest of a low ridge. From here, you can see the land unfolding in every direction, waves of stone and scrub, streaks of gold light spilling between distant peaks. The wind rises gently, tugging at his hair. This world has no mercy, he says. But it has meaning. It gives you nothing you don't earn, and everything you need to remember who you are. He looks at you for a long moment, and his gaze feels like the sun, steady, unblinking, honest. You would not last a day here, he says, not cruelly, but like a truth spoken softly. Not because of hunger or thirst or heat, but because of the silence. He turns away, begins walking down the ridge. The silence would show you yourself, and that is what most cannot bear. You follow him again, feeling the wind shift. It slides across your face like breath, carrying with it faint scents, smoke, sage, the sweetness of dried cactus fruit. Each smell feels like memory now, the trace of a life lived in rhythm with the earth. The Apache move through this land like shadows that belong to the light. Their presence is so complete it disappears. You realize, with quiet awe, that this is not weakness but mastery, to live so aligned with the world that you leave it unscarred. The elder's staff taps softly as he walks. To live, he says, is to move between hunger and gratitude, between taking and giving, between one breath and the next. The desert teaches this, but most who come here try to teach the desert instead. He shakes his head. That is why they die thirsty. The wind rises again, a slow, low hum across the plain. It carries the faintest sound, the call of a hawk high above. The elder lifts his face toward it, eyes narrowing against the light. She flies still. He murmurs. The spirit never stops moving. Only the body rests. He continues walking, but his words linger behind like footprints that the wind refuses to erase. You think of everything you've seen, the fires that left no smoke, the weapons made with prayer, the children learning to hear the world's quiet language. You remember the songs that seemed to make the air itself tremble, and the silence that always followed, deeper and fuller than any sound. And now, standing in the wide open of the morning, you understand. This was never a story about survival. It was a story about belonging. The Apache did not endure because they were stronger. They endured because they listened. They did not fight the desert. They let it shape them, carve them, purify them. Until man and land were one. Until silence itself became home. The sun is high now. Heat ripples off the sand in soft, shimmering waves. The elder stops once more and turns to you. Do you hear it? You listen. There is no bird, no water, no sound. Only the faint throb of your own pulse, the rhythm of your breathing. That, he says, is the voice of the desert. It speaks only when you stop trying to fill it. He smiles faintly. When you can walk here without needing noise, without fearing what you find in yourself, then you will last more than a day. He begins to walk again, his shadow stretching long behind him. The others follow, small, quiet figures moving across the sea of light. The desert opens to receive them, vast and eternal. You stand for a while longer, the wind wrapping around you like a living thing. You close your eyes, and for the first time you understand the strange peace that lives in this place. The same peace that filled their songs, their silence, their endurance. The peace of balance. You breathe in the desert air, dry, clean, ancient, and when you exhale, it feels like part of you stays behind, carried away in the dust. The sun burns higher. The world gleams. The line between earth and sky dissolves until there is no separation at all. And somewhere far off, you think you hear it again, the echo of their song, carried on the wind. The sound is faint, almost nothing, but it hums through you, as if the land itself remembers your name now too. The Apache keep walking, fading into the shimmer. The desert swallows their footsteps. The silence closes around you like an embrace. And in that silence, you feel it, the pulse of the earth, the memory of everything that has lived and died and lived again. It beats once, slow and deep, beneath your feet. And you realize, this was never their world to survive. It was the world's way of reminding them how to live. The wind shifts once more, carrying away the last whisper of their passing. The land lies still, ageless, infinite. And so, as the sun climbs to its height and the horizon blurs with heat, the story ends where it began, with sand, wind, and silence. A place where life endures not through strength, but through grace. A place that asks for nothing but honesty. A place that teaches, again and again, the hardest lesson of all. That to truly survive here, you must first become part of the desert's breath. And let the silence make you whole. And so, as the heat hums and the sky stretches into eternity, the people fade into legend, but their rhythm remains, echoing in the sand, waiting for the next traveler who dares to listen.